I would say there are two main reasons that have really made this whole thing, especially compared to salsa, explode like this. Number one is, so to speak, the dance itself. That's actually, well, bachata is a line dance. That means you're on a line and you move yourself to the right and left. A very warm welcome to Bachata Cafe, a dedicated podcast exploring the worlds of dance, human intimacy, and the depths of psychology.
So today I have someone with me who has shaped bachata in Munich like hardly anyone else, I would say. He was also one of the first to organize social parties here in Munich. He organizes a ton of festivals, small, large, international festivals. He has brought artists to Munich who would never have performed here otherwise, or who became known through him. And today we're not just talking about the DJ, the organizer, but also about the dancer, DJ Obi. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the Bachata Cafe.
Thank you for that lovely and kind introduction. And yes, I'm really happy to be here.
Very good. Maybe let's start right away with the first question. We once talked on the side, and you mentioned, please feel free to correct me at any time, that you used to play R&B, hip-hop, and reggaeton, I believe. Were you ever a DJ? When and why did you switch to bachata? How did that come about?
Well, I actually started DJing when I was 16. I once had a mentor who was very active in the Hamburg club scene himself. And since I was so interested in music at that age and downloaded a lot of music, he said to me at some point, don't you want to do a bit more with it? So he took me along and taught me the craft of DJing. And back then it was still like this. I wasn't 18 yet, and most of the clubs we went to only allowed entry from 18. So I was told, hey, under no circumstances should you say your real age. Otherwise, they won't let you in. So if someone asks, just say you're 18 or 19, that's fine. And yeah, that's basically how I got started with DJing back then. And then for 7 years, basically from the start of my final school years until the end of my studies, I was a DJ in Hamburg. I think I did pretty much everything there, played at all kinds of events, just took in whatever was going on. And when I moved away because of my studies, I kind of let it go a bit. I still did a few parties and things like that, but not much. And then at some point I started dancing. And then it was like at parties, I realized that the music I listen to at home is way better, much cooler, much more diverse. And at parties, it's basically always the same songs. Romeo Santos, Prince Royce played over and over again. And somehow there's just so little variety. And at home, I just knew a completely different kind of Bachata music, which I personally thought was really cool. And I kind of thought, if the DJs aren't playing what you want to hear, then just do it yourself. So I started DJing myself, making music and playing the tracks that I personally thought were cool and that I was excited about.
Okay, cool. And how did you get into dancing? You dance as well. You're not just a DJ and organizer, you also dance yourself from time to time. So did that go hand in hand, or did it really come about through DJing? Or was it more like that? No?
Actually, it was almost the other way around. I got into dancing first. That was in Passau. I did my master's degree there. And actually, it was like this. There was a relatively large Latino community in Passau, and I also had many Latino friends. And there were somehow 4 or 5 Latino house parties every week. And they just said, hey, come on, just dance. And I was like, I can't dance. And then they said, come on, here, I'll put the music in your hand and then we'll just dance with you. And that was actually pretty cool. And then I also learned some basic steps in the university courses there and everything, like many others who try it out at university. And then I moved to Munich and discovered the Tanzöle here a bit. And I thought dancing was really cool again and just found it to be something really nice if you can do it. I thought I was of the opinion that it just adds a lot of value if you master dancing and can dance. And that's actually where it all started. At first, I was just a dancer and also went to the festivals and so on. And that's when I already started with DJing and being an organizer actually a bit later on, especially after the whole COVID development.
Okay, maybe just a little deep dive. I think that's super interesting. What was it about bachata that caught your attention? Because, I mean, you can probably explain it from the DJ side, but maybe also as a dancer, because there must be something about it, since bachata is, I would say, the fastest growing, let's call it that, trend sport, especially in recent years, it's just completely exploded. And you didn't start building it up in Munich for no reason, I would even say, thinking strategically or as a businessman. What was it that really caught you? Because that's not something you just do on a whim. Because back then, before Corona, there was basically nothing. Salsa was dominant at that time.
I think there are several reasons why bachata has exploded like this. I would say there are two main reasons that make the whole thing, especially compared to salsa, explode like this. Number one is, so to speak, the dance itself. It's actually, well, bachata is a line dance. That means you're on a line and you move yourself to the right and to the left. And because of that, so to speak, the first entry point, or the first with access to the dance, extremely easy. I can, let's say, take 2 or 3 dance classes, and then I can already dance a little bit of bachata. And that's, compared to salsa, really, really different. And the second point to consider is that this is closely linked and goes hand in hand a bit. The music you dance bachata to is, especially when we look at the European market, much more readily available and easily accessible to everyone. Especially, let's say, between 2015 and 2020, it was the case that these DJs simply put a bachata beat under a lot of pop songs and did bachata remixes. As a result, for many people, when they went to dance classes, they heard music that they already knew from the radio and from home. And that made access much easier because all bachata music is also electronic. It's mainly composed on the computer. The structure is also completely different. Musically speaking, salsa is, of course, really hard toba. It's big band. There are, I don't know, 8 to 12 musicians playing different instruments. The tempo is completely different. There are a lot of live recordings, and it simply demands a lot from you as a dancer and also as a listener. More concentration is needed to find a beat and to really get into it. And it's also just much more difficult to find access to it, to the music. And I think those were the main reasons. And especially the people who started with Hitler suddenly had no more clubs, no more concerts, couldn't go out, and then walked past the Pina. And suddenly there was this one relatively easy to digest music. And there was a relatively simple movement that she once did to the music. And a lot more people dared to just try it out than is the case with salsa. And that's kind of how it is. It really exploded.
Okay, but what were the reasons then? Were those also reasons that caught your attention? Or was there a personal touch for you where you said, wow, this is, let's say, a really intense music genre? Or is it some kind of emotion or a beat? Or was it a particular singer, maybe a song lyric? Or maybe it was the girlfriend you had at the time, I don't know, who introduced you to it?
Well, this is now very, 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 very personal, but I started listening to bachata, but I really got into it. Not because I have any kind of Latin American background or anything like that at home. Bachata was playing, but there was a very specific reason for it. Back then, We Broke the Rules by Aventura came out. That was the album that modernized everything and got it all started. And Romeo Santos and his bandmates, who all came from New York and not at all from the American mainstream audience or anything like that, interpreted bachata for themselves in a kind of Spanish Harlem and Bronx, interpreted it, and also made completely different bachata music for me. And back then, I really discovered this whole album through download platforms like Casa and all the others they were called. And I just found it so incredible cool. I thought the music was so cool. I thought the guitar was so cool. Now, in such a beautiful flow. And back then, I listened to it over and over. I think for 2 or 3 years straight, I listened to it nonstop and knew all the songs. And to this day, I still know almost every single song by heart. And then when I was confronted with bachata for the very first time, I don't know, maybe 10, 11, or even 15 years later, and suddenly I realized, okay, this is actually bachata. That's what the music is called. And there's a dance that goes with it. So it was really easy for me to get into it because I already kind of knew it from back then. And that's why for me, it was totally like, okay, this is bachata. Then I want to do it because I already know it.
If you like this honest perspective, subscribe to Bachata Cafe. Not because I'm asking you to, but because you don't want to miss the next episode. So now I started talking more about bachata. You're usually always up above the dance floor. For example, at festivals, the DJ booth is usually on the stage, and it's the same now at Cult. For example, at the dance school, you're also usually standing a bit higher up. How would you say it is when you look out over the dance floor? From your perspective, and feel free to answer as a DJ, as an organizer, as a dancer, or just as a person, what do you see from up there? Up there, what do you see that we, when we just come to dance, might not notice?
Well, I think it really depends on which hat you're wearing at the moment. Of course, as an organizer, you look at completely different things than you do as a DJ. What I consistently strive to achieve as a professional DJ is this. I try to perceive and capture the unique atmosphere and energy that the room is giving off. Or rather, I truly believe that DJing is actually a continuous and evolving rhythmic dialogue between me as the DJ and the dancers moving on the dance floor. And depending on what I offer them, so to speak, they respond in return with their own energy. And I always try to carefully sense and interpret exactly what kind of emotional response I'm actually getting back from the dancers at any given moment. Is it that people currently feel like listening to very energetic music? Or do they give me the feeling that they'd rather hear something a bit slower? And I am very interested and also always very conscious when I'm DJing. I try to see what kind of vibe the room is giving back to me and how I can use that vibe. And my goal at the end of the day is to eventually have the dancers' emotions under control, because then I'm able to play with them. As a DJ, you can feel it. When you have a room in your hands, then you can play with it. You can raise or lower the energy level, make people emotional, make people, I don't know, go wild, whatever. And that's what I try to empathize with. Also, very clearly, how do people react to this one song or to this music? Are there more people leaving the dance floor? Are there more people coming in? In my opinion, you also get the feeling, okay, this song I'm playing right now seems to be going over really well. Which song could I play? Play something that's pretty close to what I'm playing right now to keep the energy level the same, so to speak, and carry people along with that excitement. That's what I look at as a DJ. As an organizer, of course, there's much more to consider. Is there enough space on the dance floor? How's the humidity, so to speak? Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Are there any problems anywhere? Is the lighting working? Is the music too loud? Is the music too quiet? Is there enough to do at the bar, or is there too much going on at the bar right now? And that's really more about organizational matters. Are the people who just paid money to be here having a good time? Or are they not enjoying themselves right now because it's too hot, because there's too little space, because there's too much space, or whatever the reason may be? Those are the different perspectives, so to speak, that you have. And in this way, you can also observe the entire dance floor from this unique perspective.
Very interesting. Now, I could probably spend 5 hours with you going into each of the things you just mentioned from the different perspectives. Maybe now, from the DJ's perspective, since you brought it up, you try to read the vibe, the room, the feelings of the people. How do you actually do that? So you may have briefly mentioned it. For example, if people maybe leave during a song, or someone comes and maybe stands more on the edge than in the middle. But how would you read that? Because often it's like this. As a dancer, you go somewhere, you can't control the music, you're the DJ, you decide what gets played. But now I want to dance, and I also don't feel like just standing around the whole time. If 3 not so good songs come on, then I'd just be standing there until a good song finally plays. Then I might end up forcing myself to dance. So how do you recognize something like that? So, okay, people are dancing, but maybe these aren't the songs they actually want to hear?
That's actually a really, really important point you just mentioned. And as a DJ, let me put it this way. This point creates a lot of problems. But it's also completely different from what I knew before. Before this, I was a club DJ for 7 years. In the club, it was pretty simple. As a DJ, you go there and play music that gets people dancing, because then they dance, get thirsty, and go get something to drink. And what's interesting about the club is that the response time from the crowd to the DJ is extremely short. That means 1 or 2 bad songs, and the dance floor is empty. And you know very clearly, oh shit, okay, the music, people really didn't like that. And as soon as no idea, if you play to an empty dance floor for half an hour, 20 minutes, then the club owner comes over and says, hey, what are you doing here? People are supposed to dance and go get drinks, but right now they're not dancing. If you can't manage that, you're out. With bachata, like you just said, the thing is people come to dance. And because of that, the response time is often between what, so to speak, the DJ plays and what people end up feeling or how they perceive it can take several days, the whole evening, or however long. Because it can happen that as a DJ, you're playing completely past what people actually want, but people still keep dancing. That leads to 2 problems. Number 1, as a DJ, I don't immediately know what the audience actually wants. Number 2, everyone believes they're a good DJ because people are dancing. And everyone thinks, wow, I'm the greatest, people are dancing. Yeah, if it weren't good, people wouldn't be dancing. But as you said, you spend your money and you go there and you invest your time and energy to dance. And that's why you'll probably dance even if it's not exactly what you want to hear, as long as it's not completely off. Then you know what? I'll just dance to the three bad ones too. The way I do it is there really isn't an objective metric where I say, these are the numbers I use, that's my KPI. And that's how I determine whether what I'm playing right now fits. It's really much more about, if you concentrate, you can feel it. You can sense whether people are enthusiastic and really, you are really dancing with emotion right now and actually enjoying the dance, or whether people are kind of, let's say, in autopilot mode and just want to get through this dance or this song, hoping that the next one will be a song they like better. That's why I also watch the audience very, very often. I really pay close attention to them and I try to see, okay, how are people moving? I look at a lot of faces and check if people are actually having fun. You can really see it on people's faces, especially when you're up there. You can see it in the crowd. Are they having fun right now or are they not enjoying themselves? And that is exactly how I try to gauge and understand what kind of energy and atmosphere is currently flowing across the dance floor. And in my personal opinion, you can usually develop a remarkably accurate intuition for the mood if you just take a moment to pay close attention to the subtle movements of the crowd. By watching the different dance couples, and I mean, if, let's say, out of 60 couples, 30 are having fun, then you can assume that the other 30 couples are probably having fun too. Of course, there will be 3 who think it's crap because it reminds them of their ex-girlfriend, or because for whatever reason they don't like the artist. But overall, you notice that most people actually like it right now.
Before you scroll on, subscribe to Chatter Cafe. Your brain does it automatically anyway when something is good. Trust the impulse.